Live.
Awesome.
And we are live.
Woo!
Sounds fun. Sorry, my computer just froze.
That's a good start.
Yeah, it's a great start. Mine's got this circle thing. I hope it's broadcasting.
It says live on here.
Yeah.
Okay. It's because this thing's like 8 years old.
Oh boy.
Man, I have to get a new computer. Mine's like 4 or some years old, and it's just getting to that point where it's slow because it's just old.
Yeah. Okay,
Cool.
so I guess we're broadcasting even though I've still got the ring. Hi everyone. We're here to discuss Incendiary.
Excellent.
Which is YA fantasy. Do I start off by saying how we felt about the book, like generally? Did everyone enjoy it?
I had a great time, personally.
I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, I rated it 3.5 stars, so like I did enjoy it, but I had some complaints with it. But I feel like, I don't know, a few weeks later, I think more positive about it than I did initially after finishing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I picked it up. I guess it also, like, its expectations. I expected a YA tropey book, and I kind of got that, but with, like, deeper looks into themes and, like, the world building I thought was really cool. So, it wasn't surface level, but, like, it had the dark prince trope. It's, like, my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I read it fairly soon after reading Jade City, which you may remember I didn't really like. So I read another book that was really short in between, and then I read this one, but they were both YA fantasy, and it was like a really good palate cleanser for me after a book that I really enjoyed. It helped me get my reading mojo back. So, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, books and lemon squash. We were definitely going to talk about spoilers.
Yeah. I think Nikki said she was like halfway through. Is that right?
Yeah, she's started it.
Yeah, I was realizing in the chat, trying to remember names. I was like, oh, I guess Nikki will see some of these things.
Yeah. I almost refer to someone as the dead guy.
Yeah.
I won't say who that is just yet.
Yeah. No, I was just referring to the main crew you meet at the beginning when I made my list. God, I hate Margot. I hate Margot a lot. I think I hate Margot more than Mendez. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but I really hate her.
Yeah, I put a spoiler in one of my name comments. I'm really sorry, Nikki, if you haven't got that far. Just spoiled the whole mystery for you.
Well, I mean, like, maybe she will predict it. Like, I did predict that certain character, so perhaps she would have as well.
So we were saying that it's kind of tropey.
Mm-hmm.
Did everyone find it predictable and tropey, or I think the setting was quite unique, but I did find it like quite predictable as a YA book. But that wasn't necessarily a bad thing in this case because I thought it was really well written. So that made up for it a lot.
Yeah, I guess, like, I mean, I mentioned, I was able to predict the main spy person, and then I don't know how spoilery we want to get right now, but like certain things with a character you think has had something happen to him. I don't know. So, I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, I felt proud of myself for being able to guess it. Like, I don't know if it was necessarily super predictable. In terms of the tropes, it's mostly stuff that I like, but I felt like the ending was setting us up for a love triangle, which I was like, oh no, please don't do that. So, who knows if that's actually going to happen? But
yeah, I don't think it will be a love triangle. I have my own ideas about who the ships are meant to be, but I mean, we'll see as the series continues what happens. You could be right, but I hope. Well, I personally think it's going to go a different way. And
interesting.
For me, like, so Nikki says we can talk about spoilers, but like, so the first third is like so like you can't put it down, and you're so like, is Des going to live or die? And it's super stressful, and then he dies, and like at the end you realize he didn't die, and like you could see that coming because it's a YA book. But I was really, really hoping he would stay dead, just because I don't know. I mean, I'm not against like that trope. It's just like so overused. It's to the point of predictability. Like, I don't know. Like, I was really upset that Des died, but then it's like undo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
he's going to be this shallow character in the next book that I won't like as much. And
I think it was done better in this book than, for example, the end of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, where it was just like a complete get out clause and really undermined everything I thought she'd been doing. Whereas like it kind of, for me, it worked, like, because by that point I'd started to figure out that Castian had powers and what his powers were. And so I was like, oh, so maybe, because like, I mean, if we're being spoilery, like he knew it was his brother, and by that point I didn't think he would have killed his brother. So I was like, oh, so there must have been some way that he magicked it. And it
had to happen, right? Because we knew Castian was better, but we didn't know how he could be a good person and do these things.
Yeah, I was really struggling to figure it out, like how he could be a good guy. The entire time I was like, he's an arse, but it seems like we're meant to like him.
I want to reread it. I won't reread it straight away, but I think I'll reread it before the next one comes out, knowing what we know at the end and seeing like how Castian is presented in the different memories. Because every memory we had of him before we actually meet him gave a different like angle to his character that made him seem not as bad. And like particularly because of how likable Lady Nuria was, and knowing that she loved him, I was like, she can't love him if he's that awful, because she's not awful. So I do want to reread it at some point, and knowing what we know at the end and seeing how that all does fit together, because there were hints, and so it's nice when you have the knowledge to go back and like have it like, oh yeah, that was so obvious now I know.
So speaking of things being obvious, I don't think I realised that Des was going to die until I think someone said it in the Boxer group. I think it might have been Stephanie. Like, she was like, oh yes, Des is definitely a goner. And I was like, what? Who?
No, yes, Stephanie and I were talking, because I was saying this is the character Justine would say is too good to live. Like, too good to make it through the book. Well, especially with like how healthy the relationship was, like for a young relationship. Like, you can't, in a story narrative, you can't go from there, right? Unless you mess it up. And then at first I thought, oh, he's captured. Now it's going to be like a rescue plot arc. That's fun. Let's do that. And then it's just like,
nope.
And they had sex way too early. It's like a horror film. You can't do that without dying.
Yeah. Although I did say this in the Voxer, I did really like how they approached sex in this series. How like, yes, it's a thing you do when you're a teenager, but they even reference like, but like we also have taken precautions to like make sure we're safe. Like, I feel like that's never mentioned in a YA book. It's always just like a part of the romance.
You have to trust that it was taken care of.
I did like how it wasn't really insta-lovey at the beginning. Like, it was an actual relationship, and I was like, I can totally believe that they're, into each other. And then it was, the sex scene was pretty positive. But yeah, I was definitely like, I feel like I have a bad feeling about this. This is not going to go well.
Yeah, I liked that it was an established relationship, and I liked that because Ren has had such a difficult story, such a difficult past, how supportive Des was as a partner to her. So that's why I was a little bit heartbroken when he died. I was like, no. And so I was actually relieved when he wasn't dead, because of how much like Ren has had to go through. And I just like that she has, like, she can have hope now that things might be better, whereas she was in such a dark place. I really felt for her. I think I talked about it in our Voxer chat, like, because of the way her character is described. To me, as someone who has PTSD, like, it came across like she has PTSD. I don't know if it was intentional, but that's how it felt to me. So I was like, I super relate to you, and I really want you to be protected and just wrap you up in a blanket.
No, I'm curious, since we're getting into spoilers, who do you think the couples will be if it's not a love triangle?
I think Castian and Nuria will end up back together. I think Nuria's husband is so awful that he has to die at some point.
Yeah.
Be free to be back with Castian. I think the reason they split up is because they didn't know each other's secret, and they both had this massive secret that they thought the other one wouldn't be on board with, but they didn't know they were actually both on the same side. And so I think that's the reason why he felt he had to break up with her, because he didn't know that she'd be okay with him having powers, and she didn't know that he'd be okay with her being a spy for the rebels. And so that's why they couldn't make it work, because they couldn't share this big secret that they each had. And so as soon as all of that is revealed and her husband kicks the bucket because someone's going to kill him at some point because he's so infuriating and awful, they'll be able to be reunited. So that's my vision of where the romances are going to go.
I like that a lot better. I hope that actually happens.
I think that can only happen if we change from first person point of view, though. Like if Ren's still our main person, I won't be happy unless I'm in the perspective of the person who ends up with Castian, because I care about Castian more than Ren. Like I actually do not care who my perspective is. But like if we're staying in Red's head in the second book, I want her to end up with Castian just because I want more time with Castian. But I can see it being platonic and going back to their childhood thing. But if I'm here for my tropey YA romance, I want Castian to end up with the person I'm in the perspective of.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really selfish.
I also really like the childhood best friends to lovers trope, so I'm hoping for that. Do you think in the sequel we might get Castian's point of view? Because I think, is he on the cover? Is it him or Des on the cover?
I thought it was
it's hard to tell.
Whoever it is, we might get their point of view.
I have it on Goodreads pulled up right now, but it definitely mentions them. Like they have a chance to save everything if they can set aside their complex and intense feelings for each other.
I'm just saying, how many times have we all read that YA trilogy where you have the Dark Prince in the first book and in the sequel is where they form a relationship and it helps with the trauma, and like it's tropey. It's my favorite thing. I hope that's what happens. Like that's why I like The Court of Mist and Fury. I want that, but in Spain. But it's selfish. I think what you're saying with Nuri and him getting back together is more healthy and makes more logical sense. If this was an adult book and we had multiple point of views, I would believe that.
Yeah. But Angela and I are here for the chemistry.
It would be nice to have some other perspectives, I think, in the next couple of books, like to have not just Ren's perspective, because like I really like her, but yeah, I think we need a different point of view character as well. I would be really happy if that happened.
I think so, especially because there's so much she doesn't know and they're all kind of split up at the moment. So I think it would be really, useful for one thing to have different points of view. And also just quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of Ren. I feel like kind of ambivalent towards her. Like, I think a lot of it had to do with she doesn't really know who she is, and she's like, trying to remember things about her past and stuff. And so I felt like she didn't have the most solid personality for me. And I was like, I don't know, I just had a hard time connecting with her as much as I hoped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess for me, my cool thing with Ren, like I definitely saw her as more a facilitator for me to meet other people. But I saw the same thing where I was pretty sure she had PTSD or some other mental illness that caused her to repress her memories. And I saw that as very interesting and something that would be unpacked. And I always found her very sympathetic because she's surrounded by people who either want to use her or don't trust her. And none of it's her fault, like at all. And I don't know. I think her power is really interesting because not only can she like relive people's memories, but then she removes them, like that removal. And I mentioned this in the Voxer. I don't know if this is what the story will do, but the idea that she thinks memories are facts, I think is interesting because no memory is a fact. Like you will misremember things on traumatic days of your life. Like you think, oh, I was in the car listening to this song, talking to this person. And that's probably not true. Like we all rewrite our memories, especially during like mass trauma. So I just find it interesting that when she pulls a memory, she's like, this is factual. And I'm like, but that's not how memory works. So is that going to become a part of the story? And then all the Moria get degenerative diseases with their powers. And like, is yours going to be Alzheimer's? There's like a lot of cool things with magic. I find it cool. The world building, like I said, I thought the world building was really nuanced for a YA. I thought it was really fun. So.
Yeah, I liked how dark it got as well. Like, you don't see that all that often in YA fantasy, so like I was glad to see that like we kind of went there, I guess. But yeah, I thought the memory magic was super interesting. Like, I definitely enjoyed that sort of, I guess, magic type. I don't know. But I'm very curious. Like, I feel like there's a lot that we don't know about it. And I'm wondering if, like, I think I mentioned this in the Boxer chat, but like, I think it would be interesting if she could also like implant memories that may or may not be true. But I feel like there's a lot we could explore with that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the magic system develops more in the next books, and I think because of how Ren is so unique, there's very few people with her particular gifting. I can't remember the names of the different types of powers that they have, but because there are so few of them, no one really understands her power. So it would be really good to see how it develops. As you say, there's so much potential for what it could, like other things that could be part of her power that she doesn't know about yet.
And I think at the end of the book, it's implied that her power, and I feel like if you watched X-Men, we all made the relationship to Rogue kind of at one point or another in X-Men, because the whole stealing powers, and it looked like there was, I forget her type, like you said, it was like a R name of her magic type, but that person was kind of converted into a power sucker. But she originally had that memory power, so it seems like things can be like warped somehow. So I thought that was cool. But like we had the empathy power, we had the mind reader, we had the memory stealer, and then we had the illusionary. Right? And I know illusionary was gold, memory stealing was platinum, and I forget the other two metals. I think copper was with the empathy people, but I don't remember. And I think silver was with the mind reading. See, I don't remember names, but I can remember this random nonsense.
Ventari. Is that right? Ventari? I'm trying to look it up, but it's not written like really obvious.
I think the Ventari was the empathy one. No, that's the mind reader. Sorry, I think that's the mind reader.
We've got Ribari.
That's
which is the memory one. Yeah. I didn't write the others down.
Nope, I didn't either.
I don't have the book anymore. It's just all in my brain somewhere. What did you guys think of the pacing of the book? Because I very much see it as like it has 3 parts to it, and I have very different opinions about each part.
I really liked the beginning. Like, I thought that was very fast paced and like super engaging. And then like once she got to the palace or whatever it was, like it really slowed down, I think, for me. And there was a lot of like what Lena I think would call like the makeover scene type setting, and it just, I don't know, I feel like I kind of struggled after that point a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely much slower in the middle section, and then it's a really slow build up to the festival, and you know something's going to happen at the festival, but you don't really know what. And then after that, it's like takes off and is really fast paced again. So I did think that was, it didn't bother me, but I can see why it would be difficult for some people, like that it slows so much down in the middle. But then it kind of did also feel like she needed that space, like that breathing space, and that different, because it's the middle section of the book feels like a completely different type of book. So because the first bit is like very much this rebellion idea, then the middle bit goes into this sort of revenge spy narrative bit, and then the third bit just takes off again. So a spy narrative does tend to be that like slower pace. There's all the intrigue and who can she trust, and she's got to try and find her way around the palace and all of this. So I can understand why it happened, and it didn't bother me too much.
I think I would have enjoyed the slower middle pace more, because I didn't mind that it was slow for the sake of being slow, because like you said, I understood what part of the story I was in. But I felt like the author at this point had been pretty good at showing, not telling us things, especially through like memories and stuff. But I felt like her relationship with Leo, is that the name of the like makeup person dude, was sometimes shown to us, but a lot of the times like days would go by and I'm told, oh, they trust each other a lot more now, but I didn't get to see that trust get formed. And if we were just going to meander, I would have liked to meander that way. because I think when I read YA, I think character relationships are really important to me. And if you're not going to give me that, if you're going to just make it surface level, then you better be fast. Like those are the options for me. So, it's not flickering for me.
Okay, cool. I've got like full-on green screen.
Oh dear.
Oh wow.
Well,
I guess I'll look on my phone.
Anyway, that's not important if it's fine for everyone else. Oh, hey, Judith.
Hey, Judith. Judith, we're talking spoilers if you haven't read it yet, so beware. So, I don't know. What did you guys think of the rebels? I have conflicted feelings about the Moria in general.
I think I didn't really care about them. I think if we could have spent more time with them, like either at the beginning or at the end, then I would have cared more. But mostly I was just kind of like, she's back there again.
Yeah, I think because other than, is it Saida, the nice one, and Des, like none of the rest of them were particularly nice to her. So it made me not care as much about them. Like at the beginning when we have that bit of time with her and her crew, like I was rooting for them and like this rebellion plotline, but then they were so mean to her. I was just like, well, I don't care about you anymore. Other than the fact of like the whole narrative about this kingdom overtaking everyone around them, and like it was good to know that there were some people fighting against it, but like in terms of them as characters, I didn't particularly, they didn't appeal to me, and it made me care less about them as a people group.
Yeah, it's so weird because I'm so used to like the rebel group being the idealistic group, right? When you have a story, and they're the ones that are being persecuted, which is still true here. They are being persecuted, but like because we have Ren's perspective, I was just always so frustrated. I'm like, this girl was 7. She accidentally was in the forest and was picked up by the kingdom. Like, what did you want her to do? Like, and I get fearing power, but like, I don't know. Every move they made me be like, you're not helping yourself. Like, if you lose, this is your fault. So now I'm just very invested in Castian's and Ren's, and I guess Dez's like existence and being, because it also does feel like even if we ignored the Moria and those people, that this kingdom is authoritarian and probably not great for the average man as well, based on what we've seen. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I mean it's basically just what you guys have already said. Like, I didn't really care that much about them, and most of the people were just super shitty. I was like, I mean, I don't know why you're being so rude to Rin. Like, yeah, I mean, she's a kid. I don't know what you can really expect. Like, she's not going to lead a rebellion or be like, nah, I'm not going to do this when she's a child. So that felt very unfair.
Yeah, and the way they're kind of like, well, you never warmed to us. You were never like, you never wanted to be involved. It's because you were being so like, you never warmed to her either. How do you expect her to reciprocate on a friendship that you're not offering? Like, she can't. So,
and even if you say that as like an excuse, and maybe people are being cold, that's no excuse to like make them bait in the last scene of the book.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a rationalization. Oh, you never tried to sit with me at the lunchtime table, so now I'm just going to throw you into the... I just hate Margot a lot.
Yeah, she sucked.
Like, she has made very minimal good decisions. She has really bad opinions about Ren. Like, Mendez was like... Mendez was on the wrong side of an authoritarian regime, and he had his questionable methods, and I'm not upset that he became hollow at the end. But he was way more sympathetic to me than Margot ever was, especially with that scene with his daughter at the end and stuff.
Did you like Margot's scene with Ren? Did that change your opinion? The one in the dungeon. Where she became a bit more sympathetic.
I liked it, but then she ruined it by
I was like, oh cool, we're gonna have a really good female friendship here, from like haters to best friends, but no.
Nope.
I was just the one that I was really sad for Saida at the end, that she was like, if she had been given more of a voice in that conversation, then maybe it would have gone a different way, because she actually did care about Ren and really wanted to look out for her. but had maybe not been able to in the way that she would want to because of everyone else's opinions. And so Ren wasn't even sure if she could trust her. And I was like, that is so sad, because you did have this one person that other than like Des obviously wanted to include Ren and make her feel safe, but Saida was trying to as well, but was kind of scuppered by how horrible Margot and Esteban were to Ren, put Ren off trying to build bridges to any of them. Yeah. So I'd like to see more Saida in the next book for sure, and
that would be good.
Yeah, see if that friendship has a chance to grow.
Yeah, poor Ren, like, understandably, is going to have, like, all the trust issues. And it doesn't help that we're already in, like, a book that thrives off, like, minimal communication to people. Like, I get why they don't tell Ren things. Like, it's not the miscommunication trope, but, like, gosh, if just some people, like, talked a little bit more to each other, we could avoid some things. Like, I get why the leader didn't tell everyone the plan about Des getting captured at the beginning, but Des, why don't you tell your girlfriend if you trust her so much? Like, I'm so confused. And then if she knows you have important information you can't forget.
Yeah, right. Of all of the memories for her to take, like, dear God.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't think of, like, why didn't he tell her?
But then I don't know that his plan was actually to escape. Looking back on it, thinking about it now, maybe when he went to the palace, he didn't know that Castian was his brother. But if he got there and found out that Castian was his brother, and like, because they had the conversation that Castian refers to at the end about like going off to find this thing that I can't remember what it was. I need to reread it, obviously. But so maybe it didn't matter in the like. Well, it clearly didn't matter in the end because he didn't actually die. That he couldn't escape because obviously his plans changed in some way after he spoke to Castian, and I think we'll find out more about that. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, if that information had been shared with Ren, then things could have gone very differently.
But also, I'm also not convinced that stealing that one memory would have been that detrimental, because again, how memories work, that's not the only way you remember something. Like, sure, you forgot your mnemonic code. You don't remember the moment that someone told you the code. Like,
or talks about coming up with a code.
Yeah. You know, like, there are many moments in which you are associating with a memory, which is why I hope we get to learn more about it. And like, memory's done differently in many things. Sometimes people make it purely associative, so it's not just the memory, it's everything associated with it. But that's obviously not true, because he shared the memory of the battle with Castian, and he still remembers before and after that battle, just not the...
Yeah.
It's all very messy, and I hope it stays either exactly this messy or it becomes clearer, but I don't want it to get messier. Like, I'm okay with it being soft, I need it to stay within the realm of I can still have fun with it.
You know, it's interesting. So I just read Raybearer, so I'm not going to like say a lot about it, but there's also some memory magic in there, and I think it's a lot more clearly defined. So it's just kind of interesting to like, you know, compare these two that I've read fairly recently together, and just how things have gone differently.
Well, now I'm like in the back of my head, because Stephanie mentioned it, thinking about, yeah, I should do like a memory science behind the magic. That'd be fun. And I have to like, it's also something we barely understand, but we just, because like we don't understand, like in Alzheimer's, we're now thinking maybe the plaques are protective. Like they're a sign that you have it, but they might not be causing it, which is why preventing the plaques doesn't do anything with drugs. And it's very weird. Anyway, sorry, tangent, because Stephanie.
I was thinking, like, from what you were saying earlier about the memory stuff, about some of the, because I've just finished doing trauma therapy to help me with my PTSD, and some of the stuff we did about like reliving my trauma, which was like, it was a really hard thing to do, but it was really surprising what I did and didn't remember from the accident I had, and which bits were traumatic were not what we were expecting to be traumatic. So it's that, like, yeah, memory isn't as straightforward as it is presented in the book. So it will be interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah. Do we think Ren's parents are alive? I can't remember if we got a clear answer to that.
I can't remember either.
My suspicion was not, because they finished everything.
There was a fire in the forest. He basically accidentally killed her parents. Maybe, unless they escaped, which I would be down for a reunion. They don't need to be dead.
I was going to say, like in YA, if you don't see the body, are they really dead?
True.
That's also true in adults a lot of the time. No one commits to killing anyone ever. So when they do, I'm like, yes, but also why?
Mhm.
There are a few books that come to mind. Kayla knows which ones.
Yeah, right.
I think we might see them again, or at least like one parent. Maybe
Yeah.
they're not both alive, but I think one might have gotten out.
I hope it's the dad, because I remember more of her remembering the dads, and I think she needs an okay male figure in her life.
Yeah, definitely.
Nikki says even if you do see the body, which is what I was thinking. Like we all saw Daz die in this book.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Lena.
Yay, hello.
I really liked that it was in Spain, though. I feel like we haven't talked about that, but like I had such a good time. And then I also watched Pan's Labyrinth for the first time this year, which is also like a Spain-based like fairy tale thing.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, both of these stories could have taken place in a different country, but I'm just really happy it's in Spain. Or like related to it.
Well, I thought this like the Spanish Inquisition was a really interesting like inspiration for the story. Like I don't think I've ever seen another book that has drawn that as inspiration, at least fantasy wise.
No, we've had a lot of Italian stuff.
Mhm.
It's rarer. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure someone, if they cared and watched this, would give us like a list of 10 books that we just haven't read. But so yeah,
That's true. It is always Paris.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the French Revolution is much more common. I think because the Spanish Inquisition is like, well, the French Revolution, it's people overthrowing the bad guys, isn't it? Whereas the Spanish Inquisition is just a long time of really bad people running things. So
Mhm.
it's less appealing maybe as a setting, but it worked really well for this.
no, I think it worked really well. I personally really loved the naming. Like it was just nice to have like those nice names. I just, it was still very European fantasy. Like, I mean, Spain is very European, but it was just nice to have it be different.
Mhm.
I just have fun with it. I just need adult fantasy to catch up and do similar things. Like, need more. I've been reading fantasy for a very long time. I need some new things.
Yeah. I feel like that's the general trend, but YA fantasy is much more diverse, at least like lately.
In the published scope, I'm sure indie is different, but like I have not stepped my feet into indie books yet because I've barely read all the published books. I'm like, I'm not you. I can't read 300 some books. I have to be very particular.
I liked that it was like clearly inspired by Spanish history, Spanish Inquisition, but it wasn't so tied to it that it was like, so I like that sort of in between ground more than either end of the spectrum where like it's a completely unrelated, completely made up world, or it's so obviously based on something that the map is entirely the same, just with different names written on it.
You know what's going to happen.
It's much better.
Yeah. So let's see. Lena, I don't know if you've read it, but I want to know because I always forget if you're in Spain or a different country. But I always wonder how like close things are to different regions and things like that. Because I don't remember. I feel like Córdova. Where is she from? Is she from Spain or?
I don't know.
I don't actually know.
She's from Ecuador.
Okay. I mean, not that it like matters. It's not like anyone was saying Own Voices Spain fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, born in Ecuador, raised in Queens, New York.
Nice. No, yeah, she had another series, but that was very different. But I don't remember what it's called.
It's like the Brooklyn Brujas series, I think.
Yeah,
So
and she also
horror.
did The Bishop's Deep, didn't she? But I don't think that's similar at all.
Yeah. And she's also written some Star Wars stuff, which I haven't read, but I think I picked up one of them for free. So we'll get to it at some point.
I think she published her first novel that she wrote during NaNoWriMo.
Oh,
So it's actually really good timing to talk about this.
Are any of you guys writing in that? If so, Godspeed.
No, I was
No,
going
no.
to, but I plan to every year and I don't.
I started Camp Nano one year and didn't get very far. I did think about it this year, but then I realized I have essays and I probably should be writing them and not working on novels. So maybe another year.
Okay, that's cool. I might have to check it out because I recently read Cemetery Boys, which also had Brujos and Brujas, and I'm having fun. I'm having a good time. So yeah. I'm trying to think what other outstanding thoughts I had about this book. I didn't like this middle being slow. I hated Margot.
Did you guys predict that Des was Castian's brother?
No.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I think at one point it became one of those, okay, you've said it enough times, fine, I'll make the connection sort of things. Like, it's not obvious, but if you like are annoyed at repetition and you're like, why do we keep talking about this thing about a dead brother and like this meeting? And then you're like, okay, something's fishy here. If it's going to be cool, it has to be something we know, so it's probably Des.
The moment that I definitely got it was when she finds the box and it has the picture in it and it clearly isn't a weapon, and so he was showing Des the box because that was when he was revealing himself brother. But yeah, that was the one thing I did work out. Like I was like, that's definitely a thing.
No, I think I was rebelling against it in my head. I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen, but that means I don't like it.
It's gonna be like the Vampire Diaries all over again.
I'm trying to remember. Like, I definitely picked up on it earlier than the box, but I can't remember specifically when. But like, I do remember saying that on the box, where I was like, I think that he is his brother.
And then I knew when she found the box, that was the moment I was like, yeah, this is definitely what. And then I felt really clever afterwards when revealed the bike. Yes, I knew that.
Okay, but like, also, can we talk about like their mother trying to just like
Oh my
holding
God.
up and like letting Castian think that he killed his brother? Like, what in the hell?
I want a short story
He has to be
about
the
her.
son
I
his
thought she was
father
great.
can trust. He has to be pure evil incarnate. None of this made sense to me. Who is this dad?
Yeah. I mean, the impression we get of the king is not a good one, but then I think that's consistent. Like with Castian, there was enough question mark about was he really as bad as everyone thought he was, but with the king, it's just obvious he's just pure bad all the way through. So I can understand the motivation for wanting to keep one of the sons safe, and like if it was obvious when they were even that young that they had powers because she had powers, which she'd managed to keep hidden, then I can understand like trying to subvert the royal family from inside. But yeah, what an awful thing for those kids to experience.
Oh, it's just so rough.
Yeah, a novella or a short story from her perspective of her life in the palace would be awesome as a the series.
Do we know if this is a trilogy, duology, unnumbered series?
There are only 2 listed, but I don't know if one more will be added later.
Let's see.
I'm just curious. I mean, I'm still going to read this in the summer probably because it comes out in May. So depending on how on top of my life I am when I get it from the library or whatever, I'll read it. Unless I've somehow fallen down a NetGalley hole, which I haven't done it yet. I almost did for catfishing too, but I didn't because I'm like, I don't have time to read it right now. Why would I do that?
I'm quite impressed by the self-restraint.
It's purely just I have so many books, and this month's easy for me because my favorite book is coming out in like 9 days, and so I'm just like nothing matters. This is the only thing that matters. What more information do you need, Stephanie? I can't remember when you texted that.
I think maybe about the mother. I don't. That's my guess, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I really liked the mute woman, or I don't know if her tongue was removed, but the one who like basically raised Castian. I really thought she was sweet, and like that was one of the things I did like in that slow section was we got to know the staff and like wander around the castle and stuff. I was hoping she'd discover more about her past, but she really only got a small trickle as she wandered. So, Angela about the mother, cool. Yeah. But no, I liked it. I liked the book. I had a fun time. But I want Castian and Ren to get together for purely selfish reasons. Unless Noria is the point of view for the next book, and then fine. I don't care. I don't care who the female perspective is.
Angela just needs Castian.
Castian book, and then it really doesn't matter what happens.
Well, I think the enemies to friends trope is underrated, so I would be happy just for an enemies to friends development in Ren's perspective. But yeah, having Nuria as the perspective character would be awesome. she's a character again that I definitely want to spend more time with, and because the novel is like the next book seems to be moving away from the palace and from the rebel group, like I think I'll be sad that we might not get any more time with Nuria or Saida in the next book, but hopefully we get more time with them eventually.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this second book, if there's a third book, the second book's going to be building up a rebellion force in this other island and dealing with trauma, and then the third book's the war. Like, that's the formula, right? And then there's nuances you can have in there. But like, if the second book's the duology, then I guess the first half's the doing the fighting, and then we can go back and get Nuria. But that feels a little rushed for all the things we want.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's not that bad, and it's really it's like 2 pages. I mean, only read it if you're feeling a YA. I would not read this when you're like, oh, I feel slumpy in YA fantasy. I don't think this will take you out of it.
Yeah.
Because I remember, Kayla, you were reading this while you were feeling slumpy a little bit.
Yeah, so I feel like that kind of affected, like, I don't know, my enjoyment of it. And that's why I was saying, like, I kind of feel more positive about it now that I'm, like, a little bit removed from it. But I think I did read it around a time where I was, like, a lot of 3-star reads, and I was like, I'm just not really feeling this right now.
Yeah, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the opposite. I think it kind of kick-started my want to read more YA fantasy, because beforehand I hadn't been reading any because they all just sounded the same. Mm-hmm. And I realised this one was tropey, but I think it's because I went into it knowing it would be, and I wasn't hoping for anything more. So now that's why I'm reading like Ray Bear and all the others, because I feel like I can do that now.
I think I was glad that I had one book in between after reading Jade City. So I read a book called The Cursed Hunter, which was really short YA fantasy. It's the third in a series. But that was just because it wasn't long enough. So I was left wanting more at the end of that book. And then I picked up this one and I was like, oh, actually this like meets that bug that I've just got back into this YA fantasy world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like that beginning of this book is just like, for me, it was like I read over 100 pages in a day of just that book, which like is just not super common for me. Like I might read 100 pages in a day across 2 books. I might do it like if I had a lot of time that day, but this was a work day. I just like straight up came home from work and I was like sat down for hours that evening and read. And it was just and I was excited about it. So it was really nice. But I hope the second book gives me lots of chemistry and angst, because that's really what I want now. I feel like that's what she's telling me. And
no Margot.
No. Margot, she's gonna show up, I'm sure, but I don't like her.
I mean, I won't hate it if there's like a kind of love triangle element, but then it resolves with Castian and Nuria back together. That would be awful. So, love triangles aren't my favorite trope, though. So I can take
my biggest fear is that there's going to be a love triangle, and Des is going to lose. But in the process of him losing, he's made into a smaller character than he was. Does that make sense? Like he was this idealistic guy, and like I kind of felt like he was naive, like they all were because they were kids, but I don't want him to become even like more naive, or like I don't want to start like hating him or pitying him. Like I want it to work out. Like if they don't end up together and it is the love triangle, I want it to be like, well, we have grown and been experiencing things, and this is why we're parting ways. Like I want it to be a little adult. Like you don't normally on average end up with your high school person, right? Like I want it to be like that. They're all transitioning into adulthood. I feel like this isn't quite new adult, but they're all like 16, 17 ish during a war, which I feel like means you're like 20. Like I don't know the inflation rate of age during war, but it's not the same as what I went through, at least.
I'm trying to think if I had any more thoughts here. Yeah, I feel like I was looking at my review, like there are several plot threads that were unresolved, and I can't remember what exactly they were, other than that they existed.
There was the one where the random hand of the king, like the Morias, or the hand that would like kind of just die, which I think were meant to be like the evil Ribari was like sucking them dry, maybe, but it's never confirmed.
Mm-hmm. That was my theory, that they had to be drained enough that they had no like self-will to be able to serve the king, but then that had a knock-on effect of eventually killing them. And I'd like to see more exploration of how the evil Ribari became what he became. Like what did they do to him to make him into that?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that the natural progression of that type of power? Because again, we don't know that much about Ren's power. So I'm looking forward to finding out a bit more about that aspect of it as well.
Also, Elena, she gets a really cool dress that's like super powerful. You should really read it. The dress has a function.
It does.
Like, incognito and powerful. Like, it's pretty cool. Also, she needed a good bath. She'd been in the forest for like months.
She was well by that point, wasn't she? Like, because she'd had like 2 or 3 people die on her at that point and bleed all over her. So she really needed to be cleaned up.
I'm just saying, Lena, this is not a reason to not read this book. Kayla, how dare you do this?
Look, I just said that there was a bit of a makeover scene.
It was like 4 pages with like a cool guy. Leo's great.
I did like Leo, but I think I just read this at the wrong time, and I just was not super happy about a lot of the stuff, and I was kind of just like forcing myself to read it because I was like, oh well, I need to read this for the sake of the book club. So I feel like it just was just not the right time to read it for me.
No. I will say it did remind me of like Hunger Games. Like Leo reminded me of the guy in Hunger Games who like helps Katniss. I don't remember his name because I haven't read the Hunger Games since like 2011.
Yeah.
So time.
The comments over here.
I'm not ready for another one. When was your last one? What is this trauma?
I feel like was it the Inheritance Games? I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't read many makeover scenes, but I also read significantly less YA than most of you. So I read like 20 YA a year if I read 100 books. It's a pretty small percentage.
Yeah, so. And I mean, this like when I think of makeover scene, I think of like I don't know, like Princess Diaries or Miss Congeniality, where she's like really frumpy and dowdy, and then suddenly she's stunning. And this wasn't that.
Yeah, no, this is definitely different.
You've been in lots of fights and living in a forest. You're really dirty. We need to make you fit for palace life.
Also, I do like the Princess Diary makeover scene. So, like, as a kid, my hair was not this controlled. It was like it was her hair. It was just a shell that sat on my head in a ponytail once it dried. And I'm like, I wish that would happen to me. Someone want to make my hair behave. Like. There's a lot of discussions in the chat that are encouraging.
Oh, man. That's funny. I don't remember a makeover scene in Trail of Lightning, but it's been years since I've read that.
Trail of Lightning had a makeover scene?
Evidently.
I read this year. If there is one, it does.
Yeah, I mean, like, I literally read that.
Okay, there's a scene where Maggie has to look a certain way to go to a place so she looks intimidating, but she's not, like, looking pretty. She's looking badass as hell. But it's not that important because she looks badass as hell on average. I know, I'm remembering it now, but I really enjoy it. Was a page again. This was a page. She was talking to the gay guy at the refuge, and he's like, well, this is the best I could find. That was it.
Well, see, like, this sort of thing is why I was like, maybe I should say that there's a makeover scene in this book.
What do you have against clothes, Lena?
Oh my.
It was plot-wise relevant. I'm about to read Storm of Locusts, so I'm remembering it now. So this is good for me.
Yes.
You can't. Oh, I need you to now do a get ready with me, Lena, and make fun of who hate makeovers.
Oh my.
The chat has evolved.
That's funny.
What is this book about? I don't even know what this book's about. The Inheritance Game sounds like the Hunger Games, and I know they're different, but
Yeah,
It's like YA Knives Out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
but I could just watch Knives Out and make myself a Knives Out sweater, right? Like this is
And then
what
the
I
book
do.
was not as good as Knives Out. At least I did not think so.
How can
Clearly,
anything? Also, I feel like part of what makes Knives Out great for me was it was a movie. I feel like a lot of the things wouldn't translate as well. Not saying it's impossible to the written media. There's like a lot of like the little things that if an author writes it, you're like, oh, I know I should look here. But in a movie, if the camera just casually goes there, you don't know. That was just because it's in the room.
I don't know this for sure, so don't quote me on it. This is just like a theory. I know that the Inheritance Games is going to be made into a TV show.
Ooh.
So I'm wondering if she was commissioned to write the book because it's going to be made into a TV show. And that's the two are going to be like obviously related. But I don't know if that's legit.
That would be really interesting, actually.
Or if
Lena
she
has
just
more
do it
thoughts,
because it's like Knives
by the
Out.
way.
So Lena's comment about that about makeover scenes, that's not what happens in this book at all.
I'm pretty sure she's like always. I don't actually know how beautiful she is. I don't remember her talking about being ugly, so maybe she's just average to above average looking. It wasn't a big point of her personal thinking about herself in my memory.
No, and it wasn't like people were more like she doesn't really belong here anyway. So it was kind of to try and make her feel more or look more like she belonged. But it definitely wasn't, oh, she's stunning and no one can take their eyes off her. It was more like, what is she still doing here?
Now, it does have the tone of like, yes, she's now becoming a possession of the king. And so obviously when women are possessions, they have to look a certain way, but like there's no like, there's negative male gaze. I don't remember anything like that sort of thing. But it's, I mean, her self-worth is not tied to her looks. It's more tied to the fact that everyone hates her and blames her for things she can't control. And that she has, PTSD or some trauma, mental illness. Like it's her life's hard enough. She really doesn't care how her hair looks. And when she picks a piece of clothing item, she picked it for the weapon use.
Yeah,
she's very
practical. And she's kind of like, if I have to, then whatever, make me, dress me up. But she is not at all bothered by it, and no one else like focuses on her because of how she looks.
See, Kayla, you need to provide facts.
Stop listening to Kayla, basically.
No, I'm also not saying you're gonna love it, Lena. Like, this isn't me telling you to read Nine Fox Gambit. Like, that was a must. This is more like you're feeling a YA tropey read. Have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious if you do read it. Like, if you think that this is actually like a, makeover scene, like a lot of other
This
books.
is like barely a part of the book. I forgot this was important. This was during that middle paced area that was just long, and she's wandering and she decides to do dishes even though she doesn't have to. And
I don't remember that part at all.
yeah, it's because there's not a lot content wise. There's a lot of.
Isn't it laundry she does, not dishes?
Oh, never mind. Yeah, sorry. She's doing a menial task that is not required of her at all. Because she's like, I have to find Castian's room to do the thing. And I'm like, your plan is real shaky, but fine.
I'm not even sure she had a plan, to be honest.
Yes. Tonight.
Judas, shut up. I yell at people to read Jemison and Nine Fox Gambit, and that's it. Mainly because the more people read Nine Fox Gambit, the more people that will like it. There will still be plenty of people who don't, because it's absurd.
I thought it was really good. Weirdly enough, one of my real life friends, I was at his birthday party a couple weeks ago, and one of his friends was like, "Oh, we should do a book club." And I'm going to give you two options. I think the first was, the Three-Body Problem, and then the other one, I think she didn't remember that the name was actually Nine Fox Gambit, and was just like, oh, the Machineries of Empire. I was like, wait, I know that name. What is that name? And then I looked it up. I was like, oh yes, I literally just read this, so you should read it too. So, like,
yeah, it's just fun. Like, it's not good if your brain's tired. Like, that's not good.
It's a more complicated sci-fi, but it was really good. And I'm like totally fine if I don't completely understand what all was happening.
I'm just glad that you guys both liked it, or at least one of you did. I would have taken the 50% rate. I would have taken it. All right. Well, should we wrap it up? We're close to the hour, unless anyone has like ending thoughts. Yes, you guys need to read the sequel because I'm for sure reading the third book in December. I can't wait any longer.
Okay. Yes, we can definitely make it happen.
I'm just adding Nine Fox Gambit to my wish list, just so you know.
Excellent.
They're also very
maybe nominating it for December.
Yeah, could do. Yeah.
It seems like everyone's got a lot to say about it.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting conversation. Like,
there's going to be a lot of polarizing thoughts. There's no universe, but I also know Justine's been wanting to reread it. I don't think she took it with her to wherever she is now, but
to her parents.
Well, I just know she's in a different part of the UK, but I don't know.
She's only an hour away, though. She can go back and get it.
Yeah, she's got to go back and get her coat and her headphones anyway. So
yeah, because she only remembered her cats and some books.
Those are like important things.
Yeah.
Got her priorities right.
Oh yeah, because Stephanie has the book too. So if there's enough of us here, you just all need to remember this when you vote, and then it can happen.
Yes.
The votes never turn out how I expect them to. So we all talk about this one book, and then someone votes for something else.
I've still got a couple of different things I'm going to nominate as well anyway, so
yeah.
We'll have
I have no idea what I'm going to nominate. Maybe I'll just nominate Nine Fox Gambit. Because I don't have as many sci-fi on my Kindle right now, so I have to figure that out. But I want to read more sci-fi, but the sci-fi I want to read is the third in a series, so that's helpful to everyone.
I'll have to think of something. But yeah, I guess we should mention that the next book that we'll be discussing is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, which I think, Angela, did you just finish that?
I did. I posted a review today. Shameless plug for the 3 people here. More. I actually can't tell.
People will see it later.
I have conflicting thoughts, so I'm interested. I have lots of thoughts about Black Sun.
My copy hasn't come yet.
I still haven't ordered it. I'm hoping that I get some gift cards for my birthday so I can buy it. Because I really love the look of the hardcover.
Yeah, it seems weirdly.
No, I need to buy them. I have conflicted thoughts, but not so much that I'm not buying the hardcover because I need those maps. Because I'm going to read the sequel, for sure. And I also I don't know. I have been wanting more women author on my shelves, so like this is an easy get. I also just need to get Skyward off my top shelf, so I can just put Black Sun there. They're very strategically placed, like Harry Potter's on the bottom behind me when
I saw that in one of your vlogs. You were just like, oh yeah, not gonna look that. Carrying on.
It's like, no, we don't need to look at that. As much as I've reread and loved those books, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Oh man.
I always forget whose birthdays are when. I need someone to make like a YouTube version of Facebook that tells me when people's birthdays are.
That would be so useful.
Right?
Well, we have that like a little bit of a list in the spreadsheet, which I don't think you're actually on there, Angela.
And it's December 15th, world, but I'm not going to ask you to buy me books. I have one shelf left of my bookshelves. So.
What about ebooks?
I'd say my thing is I have more fun if I just get them from the library. I know who I am. I just can't.
Okay, that's fair.
Except for you can put it in so you can say happy birthday. What would I want instead for my birthday? There are things I want, but it's not books. I would rather you guys just watch a bunch of my videos so I can get close to being monetized. There's a gift. Costs more time. Well, too late, Angela. My birthday's in like a month. This is the opposite of too late. Or games are dangerous though, because then people buy me games where they don't know. I do a lot of research before I buy a game, more so than before I read a book. They're expensive.
So, but if you put an Amazon wish list that has anything that isn't books on there as well, then people will send you stuff that you put on your Amazon wish list. So.
Yeah, I have actually someone who keeps commenting on my channel asking where my Amazon wish list is, and I'm like, why do you care so much? I kind of want to make like a Ko-Fi or something. It's like, if you really want to give me stuff, you can just give me money. Like, I'll spend it how I want. Now, I wish I could. One day I'll own a house, and then I don't care how many books I get, because I'm just going to have a whole room with like floor-to-wall bookshelves on a whole wall, and then it won't matter. But as now, it matters a lot to me, and I just moved, so I'm scarred. I'm sure Amber.
You don't want to do that again.
Yeah, moving books is the worst.
I suppose
I'm still unpacking, and I was looking at them. I was like, I don't really need these, do I? I could probably just get rid of them. And then I was like, well, I'm not moving out of here anytime soon, so they can probably stay.
No, the games take up some space, Nikki. I have a bunch over here, and this is most of my collection. And then I have a bunch here. But I got lucky when I moved in. It came with shelves.
Nice.
Yeah, I probably should think about like the 30 odd boxes of books that my parents are storing for me before I ask people to buy me more books, but I don't.
No, I don't knock people for the serotonin. It makes sense. I found self-control and I refuse to let it go.
Yeah, no, clearly that ship has sailed for me.
Like, between this and the NetGalley thing, Angela, are you even a booktuber?
Yeah, I've read 106 books.
Books are the one things I have no self-control over. But I mean, it's been better now I've been using my budgeting system, until I got to uni and I was like, oh, I can buy books for my course and that doesn't count. And I bought loads of books for my course that we probably have in the library, but I was like, no, but I'm justified in buying them, so I can.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only time I go crazy for buying books are for my auto-buy authors, which are like Jemison and Sanderson. And like with Sanderson, I'm just absurd. Like everything I have self-control for is like out the window. Like I buy the leather-bound books that are all $100 each. Like, why do I do that? But I do, and they look pretty. And I'm buying the hardback and the ebook and maybe the audiobook of Rhythm of War. So I have weird rules. No, Elena, it's just you have to be very selective. I have no self-control in terms of like chocolate chips. I have a 72-ounce bag of chocolate chips in the kitchen, and I eat it about every 2 to 3 months. I eat 72 ounces of chocolate chips. It's a problem.
Or is it? Is it really a problem? No.
The scale says
we know who the enabler in the group is.
I feel like Lena said self-control was a myth last time. She was talking about she's just saying the same things every chat. This is
Yep.
Like one of the few things I go to Costco to buy: litter box, sand, and like chocolate chips.
Don't confuse them.
It's pretty hard. One's 42 pounds. And I need to go eat. So
Same.
Let's see. We have someone wanting Nuri and Castian. I just want whoever's the point of view in Castian. I'm very not picky. It's probably going to be Ren. I don't know why we would change perspectives. I would like to, but I don't know why she wouldn't be the main perspective. I don't know. And then Kayla, what did you want?
Just not love triangle.
Well, that's gone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. See, like, after finishing the book, I was kind of rooting for Rin and Castian, but now I'm like, do I actually want that? I don't know.
I want Dark Prince to be all sulky and like, I'm not bad, but everyone thinks I'm bad. I want a good time. What about you, Amber? I feel like you were similar to me, but I don't think you've said it.
No, I'm good with Ren and Castian. Definitely not a love triangle, although that's probably going to happen for a bit. I find Des quite boring, so if he actually gets beheaded in the next one, I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, I remember everyone's like, "Oh no, Des," and Amber before Des dies, like, "Des is so boring." I hate that.
He's just such a dull character.
I'm sad that Justine wasn't around or couldn't be in the chat, because I know she had conflicting thoughts about this book. I remember when she wrapped it up months ago. So I'm curious about what, maybe it was the makeup scene. We'll never know.
Cool. So with that, we'll end the stream. Like we said, our next book is going to be Black Sun, and our live show is going to be on is it the 5th or the 4th of December? I think it's the 5th.
I think the 5th.
Okay.
It's now the 5th. We've said it. So.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching, everyone.
Bye.